If you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and more, visit sportstmb.com. He has been in the community for years and has hundreds of reviews. Click the first link in the description to get your account today.
Alright, so for today's 2K Saturday, I felt like talking about the MVP for this year. Now obviously, we're only about 20 games into the season, even less for most teams, so it's important to note that there can be guys who stand out as even more impressive or are less impressive later on. There are a handful of guys this year who I think have a realistic shot at winning the MVP award. Some who I did not think would be in the conversation, some who I did think and are currently there. If we can start with the most shocking one, it would have to be Luka Doncic. Now, I expected Luka to have a good year this year. However, a 30-point triple-double is not quite what my expectations were. Of course, that's rounding up the numbers. He's averaging 30.8 points, 9.9 rebounds, and 9.6 assists, but he's very close to averaging a triple-double, and unlike the last guy who averaged a triple-double, I think that Luka is more of a, not inflated numbers type of situation. When you watch Luka play on the Mavericks, which I have been doing a lot because it is very entertaining, it's very clear that he is not forcing anything, but he's just naturally getting you 31 points a game. And if there's, if you need any proof of that, he is shooting 48% from the field. The 3-point percentage is not great. That's probably the only area where he really does just force shots, but with how difficult his shot attempts are, I think you can give him some slack on the percentage of 32%. I think he's very much in the same vein as James Harden, where pretty much for his entire career, he's going to shoot a lot of three-pointers. The percentage is not going to be amazing, but he's going to be known as one of the better shooters in the NBA when you consider the context of the attempts and the difficulty of the attempts. The 10 rebounds per game, I think, is more of a product of the guys around him not being great rebounders. The starting center is either Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell, depending on the day, both of which are not great rebounders, really just 8 rebounds a game max type of guys. Porzingis is getting 7 to 8 rebounds a game, and then that's pretty much it. DeLon Wright is a pretty good rebounder for a point guard. Finney Smith is a good rebounder, but they're not great. So we have a bunch of okay rebounders, which allows Luka to get a lot of boards. It's not a case like, again, Russell Westbrook, where he has a really good rebounder that just is not getting rebounds because he told him to. I'm not trying to take shots at Russell Westbrook, though I do that all the time. That's just kind of the reality here. But a 30-point triple-double, he is shooting well from the field. He's getting the Mavericks some wins. He's only had really one bad game this year, and it wasn't even really that bad, just bad by his standards, and that was 2 games ago, I believe. If Luka can keep this up and the Mavericks can be top 3 in the Western Conference, then I think that he can definitely win an MVP award. Now, typically, when I'm talking about the MVP, I expect you to be a top 2 seed in whatever conference you're in. However, with how ridiculous the Western Conference has been lately, I don't think it's dumb to say that a guy who's like the 5th or 4th seed in the West the best player on a team that's a 5th or 4th seed, I don't think it's dumb to say that they can win the MVP award under that circumstance, just because there are so many ridiculously good teams in the Western Conference. Eastern Conference, if you're not in the top 2, you're not an MVP, because it's pretty much just the Sixers and Bucks who should be in the top 2, and the other guys it could go either way. But if we can move on to James Harden, he is averaging 38 points per game, so nearly 40 a game, shooting 44% from the field, 34% from 3, on 14 3-point attempts a game, shooting 86% from the line on 14 free throw attempts a game, getting 8 assists and 6 rebounds. He also has 5 turnovers, but I think you can let that slide with him having one of the most ridiculous usage rates of any player in NBA history. The Rockets are currently the 5th seed in the West. I actually expect them to be probably around the 4th spot. So I think it's fair to say James Harden could definitely be in contention for this award, but the one problem that has always existed with the MVP award is voter fatigue. And even though, yes, James Harden has only won the MVP award once, he has been in the conversation for the last 5 years now, and I think people are tired of talking about the dude. Even though I don't think he deserved to win it over Giannis last year, the dude averaged 35 points per game and he still was not able to win the award. So if that's the case, I really don't think this slight boost in stats, even though 38 points per game is a slight boost in stats for Harden, which is just nuts to say, I do believe that he will not be able to win it just because people are kind of done with him. There's also even more, now that his scoring numbers have gone up, it's come with him doing the same thing on every possession and getting to the line even more in ways that people do not feel is legitimate, myself included. So I believe that there's just too much of a thing against James Harden for him to win the award. That being said, if he averaged 39 points a game and the Rockets were a top 2 seed, I don't think you could say no to him at that rate, unless someone else just does ridiculously better. The next guy we have is LeBron James. LeBron is currently putting up 26 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds, and he is doing so shooting 50% from the field and 36% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. Those assists are a career high for him. LeBron has never quite averaged double digits in assists, although I've always felt he's had the capability of it. And that's also come with 3.6 turnovers, which I'm not sure if that's his career high or not, but it is a lot for LeBron. However, the Lakers are currently 17-2. They're on pace to have a 60 to even 70 win season. Even though I made a whole video on why I think LeBron James is no longer the best player in the NBA, he has played like it a little bit this year. Now, there are players who have played better, specifically the guy who is my pick for MVP, who we'll talk about in a second, but he has played phenomenally, and the Lakers are performing at an elite rate. And even though Anthony Davis, who you could argue is also in this conversation, is putting up more points per game and clearly been the focal point of the Lakers offense, I think LeBron has just led this team as he typically does. And with him being the real clear-cut leader, I think that gives him an edge over Anthony Davis for the award, and for who's better, it's LeBron. So I don't think that LeBron could lose out on this award to Anthony Davis by any stretch. There is a chance that having Anthony Davis would hold him back, but I think if the Lakers just win 70 games and LeBron has one of the best years he's had in a while, then I think he would have a legitimate shot at the award. And I also think it's been long enough since LeBron James has won the award. I believe he won it back in 2014, and I think that could be reason enough for him to get another shot at it. Last year, LeBron was no longer in the spotlight. This year, he has the chance to be in the spotlight once again after a brief hiatus. And I think that could be a decent enough storyline, especially with him in year 17 now. The idea of it looked like LeBron was, well, I hate this term, but washed king. If it looked like he was starting to slow down, but then he had an MVP surge, led the Lakers to a 70-win season, I definitely think that's a compelling storyline, and stuff like that matters in the MVP race. But if I can get on to the guy that I think belongs at the top of this conversation currently, and I think has just not gotten enough attention for it so far because he won it last year, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been even more ridiculous than he was last year. This year, Giannis is averaging 31 points on 56% from the field, 13.6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 1.5 blocks and steals per game, as well as 4.2 turnovers. He is also shooting three-pointers. Now, they have not gone in much, but he's shooting 29%. But the dude's taking 5 threes a game, and it's a pretty clear indication that he is not afraid to take them anymore. Now, he's not entirely confident, nor should you really be if you're shooting 29%, but he's also not going to just not shoot if you leave him wide open. And as they continue to drop more and more, teams are going to leave him open less and less, and that's going to be real scary. He's never going to be a great shooter, but if he can be an alright one that cannot be left wide open, That is scary, and I think that makes him the MVP, even though he hasn't developed it yet. The numbers that he is putting up are ridiculous. The Milwaukee Bucks sit atop the Eastern Conference with a 16-3 record, which, as much attention as the Lakers are getting for being 17-2, the Bucks are literally one loss and one win away from the same record. Now, the Eastern Conference is easier, and the competition for them has been easier, but I do think they deserve credit for that. The Los Angeles Lakers have actually had a pretty easy schedule for the Western Conference's standards, but it's still not easy. There are a few honorable mentions that I think need to be well mentioned, because that's what honorable mentions means. Karl Anthony Towns is playing ridiculous. I just do not believe that the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to get a high enough seed in the West for him to be in that conversation. I believe where they are right now, between 6 and 8, is probably where they end up landing, and as a result, even though Cat is playing like a top 5 player in the NBA right now, that's not going to get you an MVP award as the 7th seed in the West. He's getting 26 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 blocks, and he is shooting 44% from 3 on 9 attempts a game as a big man. And these are not just standstill threes. He's often taking step backs, taking it up the court, and pulling up. He's such a weird player, and probably he's going to end up being the best offensive center of all time. Defense is not great, improving but not great, but his scoring capability is the likes of something I've never really seen before. Kawhi Leonard just simply is not going to play enough games. He's already missed 6 games this year, and at that rate, which I think he's going to continue, either through load management or just the minor injuries that he's going to continue to have with the quad problem that he has, it's never going to quite work out. And then with Paul George, I really think that even if Kawhi played enough games, Paul George would cancel him out, so the vice versa works for Paul George. It's really hard to win an MVP award when you're not considered the best player on your team by pretty much anyone. Like, everyone thinks that Kawhi Leonard is better than Paul George, anyone with any kind of sense at least, and that's enough for you to really not get in that conversation. Devin Booker has played really well, dude shooting 51% from the field, 42% from 3, and putting up 24 points per game, as well as getting 6 assists. However, same thing with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe 6 through 8 seed is around where the Phoenix Suns land, and as a result, he's never going to get an MVP award, and his numbers haven't been as ridiculous as Karl Anthony Towns' have. Pascal Siakam, he's been good. Don't think he gets the Raptors at a 2 seed. They currently are the 2 seed, but I don't think that maintains. I believe the Heat and Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers are better teams. The Heat might not have as good of a record, but the Toronto Raptors have had a semi-easy schedule, and I think they're going to be more of like a 50-win team and not like a 55 to 60-win team like the Bucks are on pace to be. And I think other teams can be a 55-win team in the East, like the Boston Celtics and maybe the Miami Heat, and the 76ers should be. Whether they actually figured that out or not, who knows? But those are the potential MVPs. I would give it to Giannis this year. I really hope people just don't overlook him because he won it last year. Do not let voter fatigue mask you from the fact that Giannis is currently playing like the best player in the league. And then if I had to pick a second guy, I might even just give that to Luka if he can get the Mavericks at a really high seed in the West, because there's also something to be said for being a shocking team. I think Curry got credit for his first MVP award from the Warriors just being a shockingly good team. And the Mavericks, I think many people expected them to compete for an 8th seed, but toward the top of the Western Conference is not what most of us had in mind. So my MVP pick for so far, again things can change, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Luka Doncic could make it interesting if he keeps the Mavericks as a top 3 seed in the West. James Harden also has to be in there, but I just don't think he's going to win it. Whether that's his fault or not, I think too many people dislike him, and I don't think the award is going to go to someone with that much hatred behind them. And then LeBron James, he has a very interesting arc. And the fact that he's leading the Lakers to an incredible record and they look downright unstoppable on some nights makes me feel that the Lakers are going to be a dangerous team, and that means that this MVP conversation could be really great, because between these four players, I really think all of them have a case for MVP if they keep this up, and this could be one of the best MVP races that we've ever had. So definitely interesting to me. Let me know who your MVP is so far this year, who you think is going to win it by the end of the year. Those two could be the same things. And like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.